Right, I've had some requests for this, and I've wanted to do it for a while myself, and whilst everyone and their dog has reviewed Silent Hill 2 and made 2-hour-long analysis videos on it, I approach things from a working class perspective, not this hoity-toity bollocks. So Silent Hill 2... It's just Greg's fucking chicken bait stuck in my throat. So Silent Hill 2 starts off with James in a toilet that looks like the worst toilet in Scotland from Trainspotting, and he tells us that he got a letter from his wife and she is waiting for him in Silent Hill. He's a bit miffed though because his wife's dead, so rather than passing it off as his neighbours being absolute dickheads and pranking him, he goes looking. The great thing about Silent Hill 2 is that there is a perfectly engaging surface level story you can experience. You go to the town, flee from and scrap the scary monsters and uncover the mystery of James's wife. But Silent Hill 2 has a lot more substance to it and its symbolism. It's practically all over the game, and on a second playthrough you spot so much stuff that you missed the first time round. For example, the big titted nurses aren't just there for Rule 34 artists, no. They represent the nurses that were looking after James's wife as she was dying, and James's sexual frustration because he hasn't been getting any since she died. The game never explicitly tells you any of that, and there's loads more examples that I won't spoil, but I think that's the genius of Silent Hill's writing, a story that you can enjoy, but you can delve deeper and pick up the nuances. As James progresses through Silent Hill, he encounters some other characters, all of which have also been summoned to the town for some reason, and you get this weird feeling that they aren't perceiving Silent Hill the same way James is. The voice acting is often a topic of discussion. Some people say it's terrible, others say it's serviceable, which is the camp I'm in. Others say it's bad on purpose to lend the game a dreamlike quality, which I'm calling bollocks on. I mean, the actor who plays James was just taking his daughter to audition for the role of Laura, and the team just went, yeah, you'll do to play James. But despite that, I think he does a good job. He really gives off the impression he has nothing else to live for and wants to see it through. There are new voices in the HD collection. Troy Baker plays James, but the lip sync is horrendous on those, and Troy Baker decided to make James Nicole Kidman levels of breathy, and it's distracting and seems a bit phoned in the performance, to be honest. Gameplay wise, Silent Hill 2 is a lot like other survival horror games. You fight or flee enemies, solve puzzles and explore. Personally, I've never found the combat that bad in Silent Hill 2. Sure, James was an everyman and he does fight like it, but being able to move while readying your weapon sounds very basic by today's standards, but it was miles better than just planting yourself on the spot like in Resident Evil. I'm not saying it's great though. Shooting has absolutely no feedback. Enemies barely react to it, and it's hard to tell whether it's having any effect until they finally drop. But avoiding fighting the creatures is pretty easy, and the game rarely forces you into fights. The enemy designs themselves are great and enough to scare the arse out of anyone. Each one is meant to represent a part of James's mind, and the star of the show is Pyramid Head, who I'm sure you have all heard of. He's meant to be a manifestation of James's guilt and wish for judgment, and he's such a creepy bastard. He acts like Nemesis at times, turning up at bad moments, and other times he just stares at you. It's terrifying stuff. Does he want to kill James or not? There are separate difficulties for combat and puzzles, so you can tailor the game however you like. Obviously combat difficulty makes enemies tougher, but the puzzle difficulty changes the solution and hints given to you. A good idea for replayability. There are areas where age has hit Silent Hill 2 like a truck though. There are so many doors with broken locks, it makes you wonder if there's an unseen locksmith in Silent Hill we have never seen living out their own personal hell. And the camera, whilst being intentionally restrictive to startle you, it swings around like it's pissed. And there's one element I'm not sure on, and that's the inventory. It's infinite, so you don't have to worry about storing items and backtracking to pick others up, making it more convenient to play, but it does take away something from the resource management that people like in horror games. Many things have aged beautifully though, the sound design being top of that list. I have yet to play a game that tops it. There's a great making of for the game that comes with the special edition, and it's on YouTube. And sound designer and composer Akira Yamaoka explains so many of the sound design and music decisions, and it's fascinating. For example, when a monster takes a step, the sound of their step is slightly delayed to give it an otherworldly feel. I thought that was a brave decision, to be honest. I mean, most people would look at that and just go, well, that sound effect's a bit out of sync. What I love most about Silent Hill 2's sound design though is its use of silence, less is more kind of thing. Probably half the game is mostly pin drop quiet with just James's footsteps and odd whispering, then the radio kicks off to warn you of an enemy and you foul yourself. Another area I think it's aged very well is the graphics, or more the art. The majority of the time you're exploring in Silent Hill 2 it's pitch black or covered in fog, so you can't see very well, but that's the point. It's so much more tense not knowing what's coming, and the lighting looks beaut. The way shadows are cast in intimidating ways is top stuff, and when you go to the other world with all the rust and poo smeared everywhere, it feels disgusting and makes you want to get out. Both the sound and visuals combine to create one of the best atmospheres gaming has ever known. It's so immersive and most importantly poo your pants tense. Oh yeah, the soundtrack, absolutely banging. Most of the music in this game you wouldn't listen to on your way home from work or just to chill with. In fact, most of the music you wouldn't class as traditional music, if there is such a thing. If you have ever heard of musique concrète, that's the vibe I get from it. It's a style of music that uses recordings of raw materials like, well, anything. Doors shutting, bin lids smashing, reversing sounds. The Beatles did it with the track Tomorrow Never Knows, if you want an example. That kind of stuff in the music suits the environments in this game so well. And the more traditional songs on the soundtrack are great too. Theme of Laura is always stuck in my head. So in the end, Silent Hill 2 is definitely worth your time if you're into horror. But what is the best way to play it? Well, you have the HD version, which you can play on PS Now, and whilst I don't think it's as bad as the internet makes it out, it's definitely the least optimal way to play it. I would recommend the PS2 or Xbox version. The PC version is apparently very good, but you will have to pay out the arse for that, or you can commit a dirty crime and emulate it in its original resolution. Be warned though, it's not a cheerful game. I know horror isn't meant to be sunshine and rainbows, but Silent Hill 2 doesn't faff about with the misery. You'll probably be cranking after you finish it, and it's fine, we've all done it.
I'm such a mess, I'm lost, I'm no good at this. I'm in love, still in love, still in love with you. Hard as I try, I can't even drink this pain away. Memories of you, twisting my view. I've been a fool.